Good evening. This is Straight Talk with Eugene Chan. Our guest this evening is Mr. C.K. Lau, the Managing Director of both Colliers Hong Kong and the Asia Valuation and Advisory Services business. With over 3 decades of expertise in property valuation, real estate consultancy and investment sales, Mr. Lau is a prominent figure in the industry. He has written over 200 articles in the Hong Kong Economic Journal and other publications on land and development in Hong Kong. Tonight, we focus on the dynamic world of real estate development. Is it still the lifeblood of Hong Kong's economy? Welcome, CK.
Thank you, Eugene.
Right, CK, as you know, Hong Kong real estate is known to be one of the most expensive in the world. And we had a saying, even 1 inch of soil is as valuable as gold. And our home property is one of the most important investments in many people. We have talked about public housing a lot on the show, but tonight we want to focus on private real estate, which is much of a topic recently after the policy address. So we can start with a bit of historical perspective, given your past experience, onto how our property market has evolved, and also, of course, the property prices in the last few decades.
I think we can look at, a few major, turning points. First of all, I would perhaps, focus upon, the Asian financial crisis to start with, back in, 1997, when, the Dan market, was at its peak. But after the Asian financial crisis, the interest rate have gone up very substantially. Following the Asian financial crisis, within that few years, the prime rate, was at the range of around 8 to 10% at that period. And overall, in that, I would say very difficult time period for Hong Kong, from 97 up to the SARS period, 2003, the property prices in general have dropped by 2/3 in Hong Kong. And I would say, the very difficult time for Hong Kong people at that time. With the high interest rate, the currency of Hong Kong dollars was also very strong. And that is also one of the major factors affecting or pushing the property price down versus, our counterparts, in other Asian, countries. So this is, I would say, a very important era, for Hong Kong, investors and owners to remember that. But then we enter into a period of recovery following the 2003 period, because the government has introduced, various measures, in particular, inviting more visitors from China to come into Hong Kong. And that we have seen, the property prices have rebounded. And then we have a small period of the global financial crisis in 2008. But that period was not that long. And shortly after that, US government have introduced the quantitative easing. And this is where we have seen, a long period of property prices, going up. Right.
Before I'm going to ask you further questions on how property prices will be affected by different factors, I want to jump to ask a question. You just mentioned Hong Kong gone through a very difficult period after the AFC and then down to 2003 when we had the SARS. This time we've been through social unrest, riots, and 3 years of COVID. Now we're under a lot of geopolitical factors, interest rate has gone up, the economy is sluggish, etc., etc. Do you anticipate this difficult period will be more challenging than the last one, or do you think this is okay?
I think, we have seen, the property prices have gone down after the interest rate have been raised. And that, over this period, during the social event and also, the COVID period, we have seen, losses in population figures in Hong Kong. But I think right now, the economy have shown some signs of recovery right now, although it is still in a difficult situation. We have seen, the government, in particular the Hong Kong government, have introduced different measures to try to reactivate the local economy. And that we have seen some population have come back to Hong Kong right now. Both, periods, residents in Hong Kong and more visitors and tourists coming back. So these are the, I would say, important factors to support the local economy.
Right, just now you mentioned interest rate, population, or even the actual economy. So I assume those are factors that will affect property prices. So as I asked a bit earlier, is this challenge worse than the last few ones we had, or you think this is one that we can handle and we will survive through this?
I think we will be able to handle it, smoothly. With the confidence, with the support from both the central government and also, the initiative to be taken by the Hong Kong government. Mm-hmm. I think we need to act, decisively to help, to reactivate the local economy and make Hong Kong attractive, to both, our residents and also the visitors to come back to Hong Kong.
Right, CK, our property prices, you said, has dropped like 2/3 until 2003. But I think from 2008 until recently, the prices nearly has doubled, if not tripled, depends on the price that you have bought the property. So do you think this time, if we can go through this tough time, do you think we'll get that such a big rebound in the next few decades?
I think big rebound maybe a bit earlier to start with. But I think we would be looking at, for example, for the last 1.5 years, the property prices have dropped by around 15%. Mm-hmm. Whether we will be able to recover that, in the next few years, we are yet to see.
Right. So far, the prices have dropped 15%, and the reasons are what you have listed. But if we go to the fundamentals of prices, it's all look at demand and supply. Mm. How would you comment on the current demand and supply in relation to property prices?
I think, in terms of demand to start with, for the last few years, we have seen some, residents in Hong Kong have left Hong Kong. And that have created, some sort of units which become, vacant or put onto the market for leasing or for sale. So this is one way, that the demand have reduced. But with the government, putting these sort of measures to try to attract talents from mainland and from overseas, this is one way that we'll be able to see the demand would come back. And I think the population number is very critical because you need to have the people and then you have the demand for the public space. And if we look at the supply side, the government, I would say, have been acting on this issue for more than 10 years by now. And that we have seen some successes. For example, in the recent policy address, the government have been saying that they have identified good amount of land which would be sufficient for the next 10 years for building homes. And I think that relieved the concern about the shortage or the acute shortage of Hong Kong in the past. But again, we need to understand a lot of the units in Hong Kong, they are of quite old age. Not big enough, not good enough right now in current day standard. And some of them would need to be redeveloped. And that's why the demand is out there, is still there. And I'm confident that, with the rebound of the economy, the demand will come back.
Mm-hmm. And also, our chief executive was here last week, and we talked about the recent slashing or relaxation of stamp duties relating to the residential properties. So do you anticipate there will be a significant surge of prices because of this new direction of slashing the stamp duties, or even increase in the market activity? Because it seems like the last time we had any relaxation was over 12 to 13 years ago.
I think, from what we have so-called, discussing or heard, before the change in stamp duty, most of the market commentators have been thinking that with certain, relaxation, there will be an increase in market activities. Mm-hmm. But whether that would be able to support the prices, to be rebound, I think, this is not, as certain as such. But I think right now with the relaxation, this helps the level of, increase of market activities, as can be witnessed by, some developers have been pushing ahead for their sales of the first-hand, the new projects in the market. So I think this is, I would say, quite positive on that already.
Right. The real estate market has a far-reaching impact on young people, especially when everybody wants to buy a home for themselves, for their family, or for themselves to start in their career. Often, they will either use their own savings or they borrow from their parents or even personal loans to make up the 30% down payment that we all did in the last 10 to 15 years. So what is your advice to them now? The prices have dropped like 15% now, maybe 20, maybe 25. So what will be your advice? I'm sure the viewers are going to ask me to ask you, what shall I tell my kids? What shall I tell my good friends who has put their hard-earned money save for all this year and buy something in the last few years because the prices now are back to 2016 or 15 prices. So what would you say to them?
Yeah, I would say this is not an easy question, but I would start with something like this. Why, the young couples or the young people, have bought, at the outset? Mm-hmm. They need to, question themselves again, whether they want a place, to live in for a relatively longer term. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they can lease in the market. Because, for home ownership, that come with different type of benefits. They can, say to people that, I own a home. I'm a believer in the, Chinese and Hong Kong economy. I have the confidence here. I'm a homeowner. These are the benefits. So, the market actually, go up and down. With the current, reduction in price, of course, this would cause some sort of discomfort to many young couples who have bought, in recent years. But I think they need to revisit again whether they really need the home ownership to start with,
okay,
or whether they can live with, a short-term, 2-year or 3 years tenancy in the market.
Right, let's take a break now, and viewers, stay tuned with us. We will be right back. Thank you for staying with us. And we have Mr. CK Lau on the show this evening, talking to us about the role of real estate development and its impact on the Hong Kong economy. So CK, in the first half, we have touched on the fact that Hong Kong has gone through the last few decades, different falls and increase in prices. You talk about the recent drop in prices because of the interest rate or the economy and many other factors, even geopolitical. And the last area we talked on before the break is a lot of Hong Kong persons have saved hard for their home, for them to use. And the prices has dropped from like 15 to 20%. If you took on the Hong Kong Mortgage Corporation style of mortgages, you have like 90% mortgages. So they are already in negative equity. So what will you say to them? Because they're watching us and they're going to say, Mr. Lau, what shall we do?
I think we have experienced, there's a lot of negative equity situation in the past, in particular after the Asian financial crisis. Many Hong Kong people, would just sit there, work hard, and then, to continue to pay their mortgage and hold on to their homes. And I think, for this the young generation, the property price do have this up and down. And that it would depends on their own financial, capabilities or their job security, income, etc., to determine what they would do with their mortgage or their home ownership. But one thing, in the past that we have seen is that those homeowners, they hold on to their property, continue to make the mortgage payment. Of course, if they are under pressure, they can possibly consider to sell the property. But I think one thing, this is important, is the transaction cost for property transaction is not that small. Mm-hmm. I would say relatively high these days in Hong Kong still, even with the relaxation of the stamp duty measures. I think this is one of the factors they also need to consider.
So your other words is stay there, and no one has crystal ball. Will you boldly say most people would be all right if they keep on the payments? Is that what you're going to say?
I think so, but this is already, the historical evidence that we have seen.
All right, okay.
Not many people would like to default on their mortgage.
Right. And also, I checked the statistics in Hong Kong, about 66% of the Hong Kong households are actually without mortgages or loan. So is this going to help to add the stability and security to the market?
I would say so. Many people still need to live in their homes, which they own. And that, we have a lot of, I would say, older properties in Hong Kong. This is basically the core of the market. And that we have, these days, the new homes, put forward in the market, which is, I would say, the more affected area for the young couples. But if they have been chosen, the second-hand market, I think their impact would be lesser.
Right. I asked also the chief executive last week that by doing all these measures, by slashing the stamp duties, even for the stock market as well as the property market, I'm sure they want to stabilize the price or even to to make sure there's enough activity in the whole economy. What if it doesn't work? Do you think there should be a plan B? What will you advise the government?
I think the government have been acting on the stamp duty, for part of it only. That means taking away, the buyer stamp duties and the special stamp duty by half. And that, reduce, the stamp duty payment, or waive, I should use the another word, to ask the newcomers in Hong Kong under the talent, schemes, to pay the stamp duty if they have not been able to achieve, the permanent residence, status. So these are, I would say, correct or the right move for the government. If the activities levels have not returned to a good level yet, or that the prices may continue to, to decline, then the government should consider to waive the other, stamp duty measures.
Right, let me just assure you, because I asked the same question to the chief executive. He said that before he launched his plan, he has already considered plan A, B, C, D, and E, and he believes this is the best plan. So let's hope our chief executive is correct and lead Hong Kong through.
Yeah.
With all these policies, who do you think will come in and help increase the activity? Have you seen any talents coming to Hong Kong and start actually buying the property because of this delayed payments of stamp duty should they become a permanent resident?
Actually, I would like to recall a bit. Actually, in last year, when the chief executive announced that, they would repay, the stamp duty back to those talents after 7 years, of residence. Some Hong Kong, some of these talents in Hong Kong, they have already been asking whether they would entitled to buy as such last year. And this year, I think, some reports, our newspaper report have already reported that some purchase have been made, by this sort of group. So I think, for those talents who have been in Hong Kong or going into Hong Kong, they will be interested in this scheme, and they may like to, make the property purchase as such.
So it looks like the government has done the right thing. We don't have enough people, so they have a talent trawling for talents. Now we are helping them to, assisting them to buy something in Hong Kong to make them feel more Hong Kong as their home and helping our economy. So looks like this government is doing the right thing.
Definitely. I think this is the call from the market already.
Right.
Because, these talents right now is attracted to different parts of the world. And definitely Hong Kong needs to maintain or increase its attractiveness to these sort of talents in order to fill up the gap that we have seen in Hong Kong in terms of population, figure.
But since you talk about talents, I'm sure those people will have a choice to go to different places. And I know Singapore is a city that we often talk about on Straight Talk, saying that many people have gone to Singapore. But I've read, just because, doing the preparation to see you today, that actually the rents in Singapore has gone up a lot. And even to buy a property in Singapore, if you're a foreigner, they pay 4 times more tax in Hong Kong. So do you think this makes Hong Kong even more competitive now, back to where people want to come back and work here?
I think, first of all, for talents, to go into a certain place for, work or for living, they would consider a lot of things, and property ownership is just one of them. And if we look at, Singapore, for example, the private market, the private residential market is relatively smaller, than that in Hong Kong. We have half of, or more than half of the population in the private market in Hong Kong. And what I would be seeing is, more important for Hong Kong is to create those accommodation, both for sale and for leasing, to attract those talents to come in.
Right.
Those units that we have seen in the past years developed in Hong Kong, many of them are very small, just too small.
Right.
If you really want to attract those talents who would come in with their family, that means, with their children, this is not small units can accommodate them. And that with the good income that they earn, definitely they would like to have good living. That means, a suitable apartment or house that can accommodate, their property requirements.
Right. Right, CK, we talk about from perspective from the government, from the young couples. Let's talk about from the actual developers' point of view very quickly. I mean, they are the one who is going to provide the private apartments for us to purchase. Do you think they will go into a price war to try to attract these talents? What do you anticipate?
Let's see what do you mean by price war first, because the developers will be putting up the units for sale to both the talents and also the Hong Kong people. Mm-hmm. But I can see that some developers have put up schemes that there may be rebates of certain stamp duty for those right. people who come into Hong Kong. So this is one way that they can increase the attractiveness of their units to this targeted group of buyers.
Right. CK, one last area where I'm sure the viewers want me to ask you is that, the Hong Kong's economy is nowadays heavily dependent on the Chinese economy. And we know that the real estate market on the mainland hasn't got very good news in last year, like the country garden payments is having some default issue, the local units winding up, Sino-Ocean suspending their payments, and even Evergrande have people being arrested because of property work. So how do you see all this impacting the Hong Kong property prices?
In the past, many power enterprises in China, they come into Hong Kong and purchase. But nowadays, these sort of activities reduce a lot. And some of these developers need to sell some of their units, or their property holding in Hong Kong. But at the same time, we'll be looking at whether, there will be other companies, in particular, those state-owned enterprises from China, will come into Hong Kong to look at the opportunities here. And from the market, we have seen these sort of activities, at least, the viewing opportunities, have already happened already. Mm-hmm. And this, I would say, the influx of mainland talents and also, the influx of Chinese enterprise into Hong Kong is very important.
Right.
And that would also help to strengthen the international financial center status of Hong Kong, and also help to promote our innovation and technology industries in Hong Kong, which are, the two very major, growth engine for Hong Kong.
CK, last question, single answer. Are you positive for Hong Kong's property market?
Positive, definitely.
Thank you. So I'm afraid that's all the time we have. Thank you, CK, for shedding light on this complex and dynamic area. We hope that our viewers, having gained a deeper understanding of real estate development in Hong Kong and its role in shaping our city's economic future. As someone once said, don't wait to buy real estate and wait. Have a good evening and see you next week.